Hey everyone, welcome back to the Chronic Couch with Eric and Chris. I was gonna say we're officially up and running, but
I see what you did there.
yeah. But the Chronic Couch is up and officially running, and I gotta say, man, we got some good feedback. I know myself, I got a few messages from people I've never spoken to, and uh, they seem pumped that we're sitting here and talking about this. And I heard a few people's different diagnoses. Um, and so yeah, it kind of just got me excited to be back to shoot episode 2. What about you? Have you gotten any feedback?
Yeah, I mean, everybody out there, if you don't know this, we are a no/low budget production as of right now. So everybody just loves the authenticity of it. We're not
Yeah,
trying to come out with this grandiose performance because we want to keep it real and authentic. And I think that really shows in some of the feedback we got back from this week from people. And I think it's important to keep that rocking and just making sure that we are continuously providing value for everybody out there because that's what we want to do. And that's going to be our guiding light for all of this.
for sure, for sure. So today we're gonna stumble down pain lane. But before we hit all that, I think we'll kind of quickly tell you about our weeks, the past week in terms of what we're going through. I know for me, it hasn't been too much different. I told you guys and I told you, Chris, that I started seeing a masseuse, which I don't really like using the word masseuse in terms of the guy I'm seeing because um, he stretches, he does all these different types of therapies, fascia blading, and so I've been seeing him once a week. I might move to every other week, but for the first time, I have seen some improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all connected to, I think when you've come out of an appointment, which I know you'll hit in a minute, when you come out of an appointment, whether it's a doctor's appointment or a physical therapy appointment, or for me, this massage therapy appointment, feeling good, it goes hand in hand with your mental state. It all ties together. So I know for you, I saw a smile ear to ear with your mom coming out of a doctor's appointment earlier this week. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, I honestly don't think I could have said it any better myself with the hand in hand correlation between you leaving a doctor's appointment or a physical therapy appointment and your mental health for not only the rest of the day, but the rest of the week. It put me in a completely better mind space just moving forward, knowing that I was leaving happy, engaged, and most importantly, hopeful. Because I'm pretty sure most of our doctor's appointments end with pessimism, they end with depression because we're not getting answers. And it's one thing to not get answers, but it's another completely different thing, to get no direction whatsoever. So this was the first time in months that I've talked to a doctor or a therapist or a surgeon, and I left with a plan of action. So as y'all can imagine, for somebody who's just reaching for any rope of hope, if you will, I finally got one this week. And that's something that I think has been so much better for my mental health. I know everybody out there usually is pretty focused on the end result, but in our process, and especially with these issues being chronic, the day to day small wins mean everything
Mm-hmm.
because, as you know, the small things add up. And more importantly, continuously stacking those good habits just bodes better for your mental because at the end of the day, your mentality is the best medicine out there.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's great. I'm glad finally some good news is coming through for you, and let's keep that momentum going, hopefully. And
Yeah.
what about surgery? Is that still on the
Yes.
back burner or?
Surgery, we're pretty much chilling on just because there was no reason for them to go in and do the surgery as of right now. Because with the complexity of my injury, I had a choice. They could go in and they could scope out some of the scar tissue on my knee. However, I was able to track down my original nerve surgeon and I got an appointment with him. So I made the decision to let me see this nerve surgeon first because that is the most important in terms of time sensitivity.
Mm.
And if he needs to go in and operate and do a decompression, I didn't want my knee being open
Right.
because that's going to delay the time that he can go in there and potentially fix something for my long-term health and prognosis. So
And when
if
you
you
say knee open,
knee open,
you mean
oh yeah, we open it, we unzipping your boy back up again. So definitely going in there and scraping out some of that scar tissue, fixing my ACL, fixing my LCL, all of that, which is crazy to say and think about, is secondary to the nerve, which is obviously the most damning part of this injury. So I think for me is just realizing that I have to compartmentalize different parts of my recovery and realizing that things need to be prioritized a little bit differently based on a normal linear situation, because this situation isn't linear. And I think one of the things that we have in common about our injuries is, unfortunately, we've both been dealt the hand of inconsistency when it comes to a linear progression of recovery,
mm-hmm.
right? Because my knee and my nerve, the knee is linear, but the nerve isn't. It's on our own time. And I know you deal with a lot of the same things because of your back.
Yeah. So, and right now, how's your pain?
Right now, the pain is pretty low. I honestly think
It's great.
it's good, but it's a gift and a curse because although I don't have pain, it's because I don't have the sensitivity and the sensation to have pain. I'm pretty sure if I could feel my leg and the top of my foot, it would be in pain,
Right.
but I can't.
Right.
So that is another situation which opens up another Pandora's box of potential complications. But I think the main thing is just focusing on one thing at a time, controlling what we control. And I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, just trying to show up every day. And that's
Yeah.
something that I know you deal with on a
It's
day to day
hard.
basis, right?
Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's easy. Um, well, I'm glad things are moving in a positive direction. I think we push it full gear and let's go into this pain lane. Um, and what we're gonna try as we talk about our pain and pain that you can relate to, we're gonna try and push the pain meds to the side for a few weeks
Right.
later. Um, and so I guess right now my pain symptoms are everything I've been experiencing for the past 3 years, but they've subsided.
Okay.
So I guess I will talk about when they're at their extreme. Now, when I was going through my situations, and I'm going to call it situations because I'll say that this has happened twice
Mhm.
in the 3 years. And in both of those instances, I was bed bound for 5 months,
Mm.
so a total of 10 months. So when that's going on, for me, you so let's back it up. You have 7 trillion nerves in your body.
Damn.
So my injury was an L4, L5 disc herniation, and then below that, I believe it was my S1 and my S2 are bulging, and they're still bulging.
Mhm.
So they went in and they fixed L4, L5 until I re-herniated again. Um, so when you herniate your L4, L5, it affects your nerves and your lower extremities. So weakness, being able to go to the bathroom, and when that happens, when you can't go to the bathroom, that's
Mhm.
when it's like okay, like 911
Mhm.
situation. So yeah, I guess it's hard. Back pain's hard to trigger because there's so many different sensations. So whether it's tingling, numbness, my current state is it feels like I'm wearing gloves and boots, and in those areas, it's like sometimes it's burning. It's a constant tingling. Luckily, I've gotten into the point where when I'm sleeping, everything seems to settle and quiet down. Um, yeah, I think it's still a day to day. What did I have? Oh, one of the main things for me is when your nerves are all agitated and you're in agony, it disrupts the ability for your brain to communicate, right? Because your
Hmm.
nerves run all the way up
Yeah.
and send signals to your brain. So to this day, um, I will be out with friends or socializing, and I just can't speak
Mm.
because sometimes the pain is so bad. It's like imagine you have a brain freeze. It's like you can only handle so much pain before you almost shut down.
Right.
So I think, I don't know. It's hard for me to pinpoint, and that's
Mhm.
something that was very frustrating for me. Is you know respect to the doctors, but when they're asking all these questions, it's like I don't know because I've been in pain so for let's just say intense pain for 5 months.
Mhm.
I don't know, doc. Like, I can't tell you. Sometimes, you feel like you have a stabbing pain in the side of your leg. I will say the amount of times that I would Google when I'm, laying on my bed, by the way, with no pillow, because like as all my back people know, you can't like you have to be as flat as you can.
Yeah.
So no, you're trying to sleep with no pillow. I mean, you look like a goofball. I actually had a friend who sent me glasses, um, with those glasses that kind of reflect down. So
Hmm.
like when I was typing and working, that's how I would see my
Oh,
screen.
wow.
Yeah,
That's actually pretty genius.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of my experience with pain, and it's almost like, as you can see, I'm kind of stumbling because I don't know if this is a bad thing or a good thing, but I almost blacked out for that amount of time. When the
Hmm.
pain is that intense, I don't know if you can relate to this or not because I would think you would, but for me, my pain was spread out for so long. 5 months is a effing long time.
Right.
And this my second go around when it happened, I didn't take any pain meds.
Hmm.
So I almost don't remember. I just know that it was hell, uh, unbearable. You're in pure agony, and it's like you're being electrocuted head to toe.
Mm.
I never I would before I hurt my back I would hear about nerve pain and sciatica, but I never really understood the nerves. Like I
Hmm.
said, we have 7 trillion nerves in our body. So imagine, when you cut your finger and those nerves are exposed. So imagine that, uh, being shocked all the way up your body and
Yeah.
up to your brain.
How is it when you think about as as I try to conceptualize this for our listeners, if this intense blackout pain is a 10, the most you've ever felt, you said that it subsided a little bit, right? So on the day to day now, when it's not that 10, where are you sitting out on that number scale?
Um, right now, I would say I'm at like a 4,
Okay.
a 3 or a 4, which like I'll take. I think I said last week I feel like I'm at like 60%, 65%. If I could get myself to 80% pain wise,
Hmm.
I think that's the golden ticket
Right. And it sounds like you're in the point now where, especially given that situation, each percent makes a huge difference.
for sure.
It makes a world of difference in just your day to day. And I mean, again, driving out here, trying to go live your life, trying to be active, going to work, like all these different things, those percentages add up big time.
Yeah, I mean all you people out there watching and listening, especially for L4, L5 and S1 and S2 and beyond lower, uh, that's where you sit. So
Mhm.
that's why they say people with bad backs, you can't sit for at least for a long time. I've taken flights where I stand in the back with the flight attendants for 5 hours. Of course, I go back to my seat when I have to, but that would be a recommendation that I have for people who are struggling is do not sit your ass down. Stand up as much as you can. And that makes it difficult too, right? Because at work, you're exerting all your energy at a standing desk
Yeah.
because you can't sit for a long time.
Yeah.
So it can be a toxic rotation of exhaustion.
Yeah, I mean, and the advice of standing up on flights, that's out there for anybody. I mean, it's you got to get up and you got to get moving if you're able to. Stretch your legs. I mean, whether you have back problems or if you're completely healthy, motion through the body is medicine. That's super important.
Yeah, and lean into the um, what do we call it? The items that help. Like I have a in my back, I have a lumbar support pillow.
Mhm.
That has really helped. I know for me, I had to get a new car because before I have my SUV, I was in a low sports car. So you guys can kiss goodbye to your sports cars. It's not worth it because you'll get stuck in the car. When you have an SUV, it's easier to slide in, slide out. When I told you I had a flare up recently,
Mhm.
I went back to pulling over twice on the way to work. I have to stand up and stretch.
Mhm.
So I don't think people understand the the inconvenience that this has and unfortunately will have on the rest of your life. However, just know that it will get better, and as we talk through it, um, we're going to offer our coping methods that will ensure some positivity. Another thing that I like to use, I mean, I love ice. So I have a weighted ice thing that I put on my neck and my shoulders every night. So why that might not it's not going to totally alleviate the pain, but it will help. And you're just trying to do whatever it takes to bring down the inflammation.
Yeah.
So heat and ice. I don't know about you. Are you heating? Are you icing?
Anything that you could medically think of, your boy is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I am the person, all of my doctors laugh at it because they ask me if I'm trying different things, and the answer is always yes. I'm even doing stuff they haven't asked me about, and I'm educating them on things that they didn't know were possible for this. So that's been kind of a fun run on my end where my pain's a little bit different than yours, right? I think that mine is it's limited to my knee as of right now, right? And I say it's not necessarily pain because it's the only time I realize that something is wrong is when I'm at therapy and they're cranking on my knee to get my range of motion. But in terms of that, the pain elsewhere, it doesn't really affect me unless I'm walking. Like if I'm chilling on the couch like this, for those of you watching, you can see I got my leg up right now. So like it's not really that painful. But when I start walking, imagine you're swinging your legs when you're walking, and then one of your knees just imagine hits an imaginary wall and it can't go any further. So you have to essentially circumduct that with my drop foot to get around to land safely on the ground. So it's been this process where my pain isn't necessarily the most worrisome part about it. It's the long term effects of me having a misaligned gait when I walk, right? So if I'm continuously circumducting around so I can get my foot on the ground so I don't trip, or if I'm hiking my hip up to get over the top of my foot, long term, my hip's gonna have issues.
Right. And are you compensating on your good leg,
Yes, exactly.
which
So
could cause further issues down the road? Hopefully that doesn't happen,
right.
right?
That's true. No, that's exactly right. And I think that it's something that deserves a lot of attention because for anybody out there that has a unilateral injury, you have to make sure that you are taking care of the other side. If you're out there with bilateral injuries, just do what you can with the part of your body that you can use, right? Again, as much movement as you can because your body atrophies really fast. And I realized that this week when I was at the doctor, he was looking at my VMO muscles in my knees and he's like, well, compared to this picture you showed me from 6 months ago, this is actually really bad. So we need you to start working on some small exercises to be able to get that back in motion, because that's only going to support the rest of your knee. So going back to where the pain necessarily is, it's localized to my knee. But again, because I have so many other deficits, I'll have low back issues because I'm hiking up my foot. My left hip is all kind of wonky
Yeah,
because I'm
because
going
you're,
through, right, I'm kind of doing this weird like two step as I hobble
yeah,
down the hallway.
yeah,
So it's, when we talk about daily life, again, walking is something that is obviously super important for me and just for my mental health. So
likewise.
the fact of being able to walk now, it's all right, Chris, great job. You're able to walk now, but now you have to think about this wealth of other problems that could potentially go wrong if you're not walking the right way. So, fortunately, I have some therapist friends out there who've been training me on honestly how to learn to walk again, which is weird because you couldn't have told me that 7 months ago that I was going to be needing to relearn how to walk and me think that was even a possibility. So, with that being said, I just think it's important to realize that if you have a unilateral issue, make sure you're not forgetting about the other side, because our body works in parallel with each other. And you need to make sure that you're doing all the right things to keep things strong that may not be getting used.
Okay. And that's very insightful, and I can somewhat understand what is it called? One side, that's lateral,
Unilateral.
unilateral.
Hmm.
So all my back people out there, usually you'll get sciatica on one side. So for me, mine's my entire right side. I noticed when I was going through my 5 month bedbound situation, when I was able to get up, and you guys must get up out of the bed. You got to do it as hard as it's going to be. You got to get out and walk. For me, that's when I noticed problems on my left side.
Hmm.
So it kind of goes back to what you were saying, um, and I think we can talk about the impacts that this has on our daily lives. I think for me, it's different every day, right?
Yep.
Because some days my nerves are going wonky. Some days they're not as awoken uh, as some days. So my days are different, but it's always at the forefront of my mind. And you guys should always try. My recommendation would be to always try and think ahead and plan as best as you can. Um, so whether that's making sure you got your lumbar pillow, if you're going to see a movie, I know for me, when I went to go see a movie, I had 3 pillows.
Rightfully so.
You know,
Right.
you have, and that would be also my recommendation for when you sleep. And we're gonna talk all about sleep another time, but you have to do whatever you can to get comfortable. And I would be lying if I said there are going to be countless days and nights where you're not comfortable.
Hmm.
Um, and that's kind of where you're going to have to lean in on whatever it is your higher power. Is it your faith? Is it I know for me, I would do my very best to see the sunset. I know that's something we both we lean into. Other things that I've at home remedies that I've liked are scents. So whether that's lighting a candle, I put drops on my pillows. Like
Hmm.
what's the scent? Chris has got some
All
Epsom
right.
salt up there.
That's right.
I can't think of the scent.
Can't mention sponsors just yet, but just know they're here.
Yeah, highly recommend Epsom salt baths. I think that could go with all injuries.
Oh, of course.
Um,
Even when you're perfectly healthy, get your ass in the bath.
yes, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, you're gonna have to get creative.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've heavily leaned into my scents. I also went a little manic, and while I was in so much pain, I was walking a lot. Like I was doing 40,000 steps a day.
Damn.
Yeah, I walked all the way up to Sunset, and I would just walk. And the crazy thing is that my toes would be crossed the entire
Mhm.
time because I was in so much freaking pain. And I actually documented some of these walks, which I haven't had the courage to go back and look at.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the walking helps. And yeah, so what I was saying was I, grew blisters on my feet from
Mhm.
walking so much. My point being, all that to say, is find something that can distract you, that can be a diversion from the pain. Um, yeah, I don't know. Do you have any recommendations on 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 pain management? Again, we're not hitting pain meds
Right.
today, but
More so coping mechanisms, right? Or something to the extent I think for me, I've really attached myself to the motto of my body may be temporarily broken, but my mind isn't. So that allows me to just throw myself into my work. And I love being creative. I'm just a high energy creative person by nature. So it allows me to really focus on working with friends on their businesses, doing some consulting, helping people grow their ideas, helping them scale their brands, or just getting the ideas out of their head and out into the world. I really enjoy doing that. And I think that's something that I find solace in because it's it allows me to live through a bifocal lens, right? I have
yeah,
one lens is going to be selfishly. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy helping people. Selflessly, I'm helping out a homie. So
right,
I
right.
get to see the vision, right? And I really enjoy doing that. So for me, it allows me to escape my physical condition because I know if I get up and try to walk, I'm going to be stiff. My knee is going to hurt. My Achilles is pretty shortened right now because I have foot drop. So as you can imagine, the back of my foot's been retracted up. So my Achilles
Super tight, I
is
bet.
super tight.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just really important for me to have that escape. So that's why even on the music front, like I've got back into DJing because I can stand up now for an hour. And
Hmm.
music has always been something for me that I love doing because it brings people together. And for me, selfishly speaking, it takes me somewhere where I can just be away from my troubles. It's a sanctuary of sorts. Like it's the way I used to treat basketball when I was a kid.
Hmm.
And you touched on something earlier, and I wouldn't necessarily call this a coping mechanism, but when you were talking about your back support, another thing that I cannot stress more is optimizing your environment for success. So, prime example is if you're going to a movie, you got your lumbar support. For me, it's making sure there are no rugs around my apartment because I can't
You'll
fall and
trip.
trip because my foot is dropping. So, I'm more likely to trip. So, making sure that I'm wearing socks that are cozy. Everybody out there knows me. I've been wearing my cozy socks here for a minute, but they allow me to slide across the floor as opposed to me having a bare foot that might get a little humid and then I'm tripping over it and all these different things. So, optimizing your environment for your condition is probably the most important thing I can stress when we talk about coping mechanisms because if you're not feeling safe in your environment, your mental's already starting off on the downfall.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
making sure you are doing everything that you can. I know I'm about to be in bed for a while. I'm gonna have me some water right next to me.
Yes,
I know I'm
thinking ahead.
exactly and preparing for what you know your life is. And I think that's the first step to honestly not I'm not going to say conquering, but at least dealing with your condition in the most optimal way possible.
Hmm. And I think there's no doubt there's going to be debilitating days for sure. And I think it's okay to, like, you're going to want to jump off, you're going to want to jump those days. So don't, those are the days where it is so important not to push yourself. And of course, there's going to be days where you can't even think you're going to push yourself. But I like how you brought up work because I totally forgot about that. For me, work is what saved me because I started thriving in my work.
Hmm.
And I think you guys will see, and it doesn't have to be work. Maybe maybe it's a passion project. So when you get through those debilitating days, right? Because your body's bound to, if you're laying still, your body's bound to heal a little bit. It's important, like you said, not to get too stiff. But on the days that you get through that, start thinking of some passion projects, hence the chronic couch. That's where this all came from. When I was going through this, I was like, I'm going crazy, right? Because you're in so much pain that for me, I went to a different dimension. It's freaky, but it's the truth.
It's true.
Um, and while you're in that dimension, you'll be surprised of what creative ideas you can think of.
Yeah.
So turn that pain into purpose.
It's funny. I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day, and just kind of a parallel for that is something that I realized being around music for my entire life. Some of the greatest songs ever made were made out of despair, made out of heartbreak.
Yeah.
Somebody got cheated on, somebody's a widow, whatever it is, but those are some of the greatest songs that have ever been made. So don't let your condition limit you, because it could actually end up being a superpower that propels you towards something more fulfilling than you ever thought was possible. So to Eric's point, if you're sitting there and you're having these moments of, man, I'm going haywire right now, my mind just can't stop spinning, think about every thought that's going through your mind. And I equate it to how I view meditation. I view meditation as if I'm at a ski lift and each gondola is coming around, and each gondola has its own respective thought, and then I let it go. I internalize what it is, and then I let it go. So sitting with those thoughts and making sure that you have, hopefully now, an actionable way to think about it, but actually enjoying each of those thoughts independently and realizing, okay, I can take from this, I can take from this. I'm gonna let that one go. I really didn't like that one. Because at the end of the day, when it's time to get up and move, you have an idea or two that may be leading you to a better future for yourself, and at least an escape from your physical condition.
Yeah. I think, and this might sound silly, but I think leaning into the comfort food. I know for me, like I said, that my second go around, I nixed the pain meds and I put on some pounds and was hitting up the ice cream.
There it is.
And
what's the favorite flavor though? What's up?
It would switch every week, but I got hooked on the Talentis.
Okay. That's a healthy-ish option.
Yeah, but I would eat the whole. I was eating like one a day. But you know, yeah.
Talentis, we still love you.
Yeah. No, I mean there could be worse things, and I do want to say you are not crazy. I think I struggled with that. Was probably one of the hardest things for me. I can't tell you how many times I was in bed and I would Google what are the most painful injuries, because I was like, dude, suck it up. But like I said, I ruptured my Achilles, and I would rather do that 20 times in a row than this back stuff. I don't know where your injury ranks. There's no high ranking, low ranking. Your pain is justified. Me personally, they compare, and my surgeon told me this, and my pain management doctor, who sucked, told me this. That's another story for another time. That when you herniate a disc, it's like childbirth, except with childbirth, and I'm not, all the mamas out there don't come for me, but with childbirth, eventually the pain goes away. So when you have a herniated disc, it's that excruciating, intense pain nonstop. So the pain can take over, but it will not take over you. And I think that's where I leave it.
No, I feel you. I mean,
Yeah.
I think for your Talentis, I feel like this is one of those Texas Hold'em moments
Yeah.
where I see you and I'm gonna raise you the affectionately called chronic couch. Your boy needs some edibles every now and then, right? And I think
I'm
that
with you,
for
man.
me it's been one of my saving graces, because when I was in the hospital going through the bulk of my pain and rehab and everything like that, obviously stone cold sober because I couldn't do anything and my body couldn't handle me doing anything. And I think now, since I'm kind of back out into the world doing all these different things, I want to unwind at the end of the day. And unfortunately, due to
Amen.
my bypass graft on my leg, smoking is not on the table and never will be again. So, you
Why is
know,
that?
just because it affects the potential potency of
The healing.
the healing of the graft. So the graft itself is healed, but the patency of the graft and making sure that I don't get like atherosclerosis and it closes up on me, and then I'm back at square one. So smoking is off the table. As much as my 20s, I was hookah Doncic. So
Yeah.
I was out here with my friends, around LA and all these places. But nowadays, I'm all about the edibles, man. And I obviously limitation and moderation is key. So I'm not doing it every single night, but after a long week, when you're dealing with chronic pain, when you're dealing with work, when your brain is just go, 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 I just know, all right, Friday night, I'm unplugging. This is what it is. Saturday, if I'm feeling it, same thing. But I'd be remiss if I didn't admit to liking chronic on the chronic couch.
Dude, and I'm with you, Chris. I'm with you. I think I think it's important to find something, and if it becomes a habit, so be it, but make sure it's a healthy habit.
Mhm.
And it is important to find a way to wind down at the end of the day, at the end of the week, whatever it is.
Yeah. And you realize that the escape that you find, and again, my marijuana consumption is in very, very tame moderation, but it's important to realize that similar to stressors on the human body, if you look at a lot of the unhealthy foods that doctors say not to eat and all these different things versus the amount of cortisol that gets released in your body and the immediate and long-term impact that can have on you is actually worse than food, because the cortisol that's released is so bad for you. That's how you put on weight. It's all these different hormones that get released that can actually end up causing your body more damage than an edible every couple weeks does.
Right.
So I think it's important to note that, because that's just real life. I know people that try to start diets and they're thinking, oh, I'm going to be keto, or I'm going to be anti inflammatory, and never have a cheat meal, never have a cheat snack. And they end up gaining weight because they're stressed out because they can't get a taste of something that they want.
Right.
And it's important to realize that life is all about moderation, because it's the key to keeping yourself sane. And I think that, coupled with other recovery methods or other methods that I have that are aimed at just making me feel less stressed, whether it's a foot spa bath with some Epsom salt, whether it is an infrared heating pack on my back, whether it is my feet in an ice tub, whether it is CBD cream on my joints and my knees. I can go down the list of different
Hmm.
things that I try and different things that I've identified that work. But at the end of the day, your personal recovery plan should and will be uniquely you. And that's how you get the most out of it.
And for what it's worth, by the way, we are in California if you haven't picked up on that.
That's
So
true.
my surgeon and all my therapists have said off the record edibles,
Hmm.
like try edibles.
Yep.
So if you guys can safely get your hands on something like that, I'm not saying it has to be edibles. We mentioned some other products, like the Epsom salt bath. I have a back massager that I lay on every night. I think, and we will talk about sleep, but the winding down goes hand in hand with your nighttime routine,
Hmm.
because the days can be grueling and it's a grind when you're in pain and you got to work or you got to go pick up your kids or whatever it is. You have to be able to find a way to take a deep breath,
Yep.
compress, and try your best to reset for the next day. And I think the longer you live with pain, maybe your pain's not forever, perhaps it might be forever. Um, Coming to acceptance with that is the first step, I would say, and that's a hard step to overcome and get to, but I would say the second step is to learn how to start your new life and bring those external coping methods into your life.
Yeah. I think that's That's the perfect way to hit the nail on the head. I think one of the things I wrote down on a notepad a couple weeks ago before I started working out again was make this body better than your last one. I think that's super important because you have the potential, if you're still breathing, to be better. And although it may look a little bit different now, you may not be at the gym bench pressing 800 pounds. That doesn't necessarily make you functional either, right? So, how can you make yourself the best version of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally with this new set of circumstances you've been given? And once you can sit with that and really think about how can I optimize my life? How can I optimize my day to really make sure that I'm going to be okay in all of this mentally? The physical will follow because I said before, it's mentality is the best medicine out there. And there's obviously tons of research on the neurological ability to reconnect tissues, to do all these different things to essentially make it mind over matter. And it's important for people to realize that they have the power to do that, regardless of their physical state. You
For
know, if you're
sure.
breathing, your mind is capable to do great things. And I want people to take that away from this episode, especially being centered around pain. Yeah, it fucking sucks. But at the end of the day,
You said it.
I did say it.
I'll
It does
retweet
suck,
it
right? It sucks. But in all honesty, your mentality is going to be what gets you through it. Because if you wake up and you're in a bad mind space, oh man, I can't do this, I can't do that. Your day's already gone.
And I have those days all the time. You know?
And it's natural.
Yeah.
And it's natural. But my theory is it's like having a bad practice. You can't let the bad practices continue to stack because then you end up in a shooting slump, right? So, oh man, I had a bad shoot night. I went 3 for 17. Tomorrow night, I'm gonna get out here, I'm gonna shoot over 50% and get back about my business. But you can't let those bad days stack because the weight intensifies. And compound interest goes both ways. So
Yeah.
don't let it go the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm really excited for us to talk about the mental game of this whole ordeal, and that's why it's kind of hard to pinpoint these into episodes because they all go together. But I just want to say it one more time that for those of you who are in pain, you are not crazy. Your pain is legit, and we hear you. We might not be able to see you, but we are definitely with you.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on that, advocate for yourself. You are your biggest advocate in any medical situation. I know when we get down the road and talk about insurance, I'll say that again, but that's something I want to echo every episode. Nobody's going to speak up for you more so than yourself, and that's the way it should be. So, whatever situation you're going through, if you're dealing with providers or if you're dealing with doctors or whatever it is, tell people how you feel and be honest and be open because closed mouths don't get fed, right? And if you need help, you need to be able to signify that to somebody and using your voice and telling them like, I'm not feeling this or I'm feeling this, because as Eric said, you're justified, but that justification can't just live in here. It has to live out in the world. You have to give it the powerful emotion so that people know that you're in pain and you can get what you want. And that's something that we want to provide. As again, as always, the space is always here. And we want to let y'all know that it's possible to do these different things. And it all starts with you just taking the first step and waking up every day and saying, I'm going to be better today. I'm going to advocate for myself today. And you'd be surprised after the first 90 minutes of being awake, how much better of a start you're off to than a normal day where you woke up and you're just like, my condition sucks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's a hella pain, no gain some days, but if you stick to it and just continue to stack those good days, then you'll be a lot better off than where you were if you hadn't.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. So that's episode 2, y'all, in the books. A little bit longer this week, but hopefully, again, if you're in California with us, you might have been sitting in traffic. So hopefully you enjoyed it and you're at your destination. I mean, if you're going from Santa Monica to Venice, it still might take you 2 days, but it's hopefully you enjoyed the ride with us this week. And we'll be back next week with episode 3.
See you guys.
Peace.